Yeah, okay. Good afternoon and good evening to everyone who's joined us today. Thank you for being here. Asia Dalit Rights Forum, along with its network partners, have organized this side event for the Asia Pacific People's Forum on Sustainable Development. As many of you know, communities discriminated on work and descent are among the most vulnerable communities and most ostracized in all spheres: economic, social, political, development. Globally, more than 260 million people belong to these communities, and a majority of them are within Asia. Um, the generational discrimination that these communities have faced uh, continue to impact the youth from these communities even today. Today, CDWD see discrimination in access to health facilities, facing social barriers in employment, inadequate access to education, situations of violence, and many other such human rights violations and issues in the social, economic, civil, and political spheres of life. Um, as countries continue to build back in the midst of this long drawn out pandemic uh, that continues to impact several countries, the social prejudices that CDWD continue to face has led to further marginalization of these communities during this COVID-19 pandemic. However, no matter what the challenges are, marginalization and exploitation that they face, communities discriminated on work and descent and their youth movements have continued to challenge the status quo and the systemic discrimination that they have faced for generations. When we speak about build back better, we cannot do so without the communities that have been systemically discriminated against and left behind. The hope for any nation are their youth. And so highlighting the importance of CDWD youth participation in all spheres of and all processes, today we look to learn from Dalit and CDWD youth movements in South Asia, their journeys over history, and what learnings all of us can take away and what are the possibilities in the future. So today's session will sort of be a format of an interview where I will, as the moderator, ask questions to our distinguished panelists. We are joined by three wonderful panelists today. Unfortunately, one of our panelists, Bridika Century, was not able to be with us today due to a family emergency. But nevertheless, I'm sure we'll have an interesting session with uh, Tamanna Singh Baraik, Basil Dogra, and Adhikanta Singh. Just by way of introduction of all our speakers today, Tamanna belongs to the Teak community, one of the most marginalized and vulnerable communities in Bangladesh. She is a popular activist in Bangladesh regarding rights of Dalit women. She has contributed to preparing major policy and strategy papers relating to Dalit rights in Bangladesh, including drafting of the Anti-Discrimination Act of 2013. Tamanna has also represented her community and the Bangladesh Dalit voice at several international platforms over the years. Our other speaker is Basil Dogra, who's from Pakistan. He works with the research. He works as a research associate at the Center for Law and Justice. He's worked on a number of research projects, including on topics such as issues of sanitation workers in Lahore, profiling the religious minorities in Pakistan, experiences of minority women in Pakistan, and the grooming of Christian and for religious and matrimonial purposes. Basil hails from the Christian minority of Pakistan and is passionate about the issues of Islam, and has had the chance to work on peace, interfaith harmony, hate speech, human rights, social justice, and minority rights. Our final speaker is Adhikanta Singh, who works as the National Coordinator Advocacy for the Dalit Arthik Adhikar Andolan, one of the units of National Campaign for Dalit Human Rights. He's worked with NCDHR for over a decade in several different roles. Adhikanta has been working in the social sector in India for more than 18 years as a professional social worker and Dalit activist. He's committed to the Dalit cause and has been associated with different Dalit movements demanding justice for victims of communal violence, government reservation status for Dalit Christians, and economic rights for Dalit communities. Thank you all for being here with us and looking forward to the discussion we are going to have now. I will start with the first question for our panelists. Each of you will have 7 minutes to respond. We will start with Basil, then going to Tamanna, and finally Adhikanta. So the first question is, what has been the history of Dalit and DWD movements in your country? How do these movements add to the larger movement of human rights? And what role have Dalits and DWD youth played in them? Basil, please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the chance to speak. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel discussion. I'll be giving a brief overview of the history of Dalit movements in Pakistan and specifically the role of youth in it. If Pakistan and India, both of these countries came into being roughly 75 years ago, and since then each of them have had some sort of a turbulent history, and Pakistan has had a more turbulent history, so to say. And as far as the Dalit movements are concerned, to my knowledge, there has not been any kind of organized nationwide Dalit movements in Pakistan specifically, because the very narrative of the Christian and scheduled caste Hindu minorities in Pakistan as being descendants or tracing their ancestry or origin from India's Dalit communities is not a narrative that is largely prevalent in Pakistan. People and the Christian community and the minority Hindu community, these communities usually build their identity around their religion rather than their caste background. And this idea that the practices of untouchability, the fact that large portions of these communities are within the work of sanitation, the only explanation that they have is that this is probably due to religious discrimination. So this is a result of a study which we produced back in 2019, in which we showed how the structures of caste discrimination that were there in pre-British India, in Pakistan, they eventually changed into religion-based discrimination, and so those practices were re-articulated in form of religious discrimination. So people have been organizing around religion, around their religious communities, but then again, there has not been so far any large nationwide organized communities. There have been individual efforts which have been working so far. So there are a number of important voices within the civil society and non-profit sector which have been leading efforts for more better human rights for communities which trace their origins from Dalit or communities which experience discrimination based on work and descent. I'm just going to give a few names out here, but this is not all. There are a number of, but the ones which have been most impactful, I'll be mentioning those. So first is of course Center for Law and Justice, where I work as a research associate. We have been working since past 3 years, and we have produced a number of important studies and research on development related and discrimination related issues, especially for minority communities, has not been a practice here in Pakistan, but we proudly have been able to initiate this practice where we have been exploring the dynamics of discrimination and how these religious discriminations can be originally traced back to the caste discrimination. So apart from Center for Law and Justice, there is MCJP, National Commission of Justice and Peace, which is a non-profit run by the Roman Catholic Church in Pakistan. Then there is Center for Social Justice, which is again another non-profit that has been doing some substantial
गैर सरकारी गैर लाभकारी संस्था है जो इस विषय पे काम करती है. कई सारे
communities of Dalit descent are concerned. Then there is, of course, Community World Service Asia, which is an Asia-wide organization. It has also made some very useful contributions. There are also some important activists who have been very influential and have led to a number of important achievements. So Mary James Gill, who is also my boss, Mr. Peter Jacob, Mr. Asif Akil, they all have been active and have led all the discussion within the Christian community from the forefront. Within the Hindu community, there are also some important names such as Dr. Ramesh Kumar Vankwani and then others, but all of these movements are not very well known in Pakistan, and then all of these operate in a very at a very small scale. There is also the role of church leadership in Pakistan. So bishops from the Roman Catholic Church and bishops from the Church of Pakistan, they have been pushing and leading some efforts for better rights for communities that are discriminated based on work and defense. Within Hindu communities, which are mainly based in Sindh, there are two communities actually. So within Sindh, there are upper caste Hindus and then there are lower caste Hindus. Lower caste Hindus and how they've been organizing. There are a number of activists who I have been in touch with as well. They have been pushing forward efforts, and then there was an important political leader some time ago. In 2008, this political leader was assassinated. His name was Shahbaz Bhatti, and he also led many important efforts to achieve a number of rights for religious minorities in Pakistan. So I'll just be quickly mentioning some of the things that these people have collectively achieved so far through their struggle. So recently, in 2000 and somewhere in 2004 or 5, 2008, I guess, yes, 2008-9, the government for the first time established the quota for religious minorities in government jobs. So 5% of all government jobs were supposed to go to people from religious minority communities, especially Christians and scheduled caste Hindus. And then also a minority day, National Minority Day was established, and nowadays this Minorities Day is celebrated throughout Pakistan, especially in the Presidential House and the Prime Minister House. Before, there was no reserved seat for minorities in the Senate of Pakistan, but now these seats have been established somewhere around 2008 and 2009. Most of the credit largely goes to Shahbaz Bhatti. And then efforts are also being made to seek a ban on forced conversion and marriage of underage girls. This is a raging issue here in Pakistan, where in media these cases are actually dubbed as forced conversions, but we are recently in the process of conducting a study where we have uncovered how this is not actually forced conversion. Rather, this is an instance of grooming for purposes of religious conversion and for purposes of sexual grooming. I'm hoping to share this on my Twitter soon and everywhere else, and we are hoping to publish this report soon as well. Recently, we have also been pushing for a ban on requiring non-Muslims only for sanitation work. So usually 80%, 60% of the time, whenever there is a government ad requiring people to apply for sanitation work, it is usually the job ad usually explicitly mentions that non-Muslims are only supposed to apply for that work, and specifically Christians and scheduled caste Hindus. And it is pretty clear that where this trend is coming from, right from the ancient discrimination which Dalit communities have faced throughout in Indian history. Apart from all of these little bit of changes here and there, the major issues of Christian and scheduled caste Hindu communities still remain there, which are rampant poverty, lack of access to adequate education, which they can successfully complete. Most students, even if they enroll in schools, government schools, they end up dropping out. 90% actually drop out before they reach the 10th grade. And same is the case with health. Recently, we are also conducting a study on all the non-Muslim Christian neighborhoods in Lahore, and we are hoping to publish that study soon, which will explore all of this in detail. So overall, individual efforts, small-scale efforts, but no nationwide organized movement of Dalits, and so no organized youth movement of Dalits in Pakistan, at least not to my knowledge.
Thank you so much, Basil, for giving us the Pakistani context and also highlighting the work that CSOs have, the role that CSOs have played in highlighting the issues of minorities in Pakistan. I'll move to Tamanna if Tamanna would be able to give us the Bangladeshi context on the same question.
Thank you, Nantaraji. Thank you, moderator and organizers. In Bangladesh, Dalit is one of the most backward section of population of Bangladesh. Although there is a dearth of illiterates on the subject, leading sample survey indicates 6.5 million Dalits and socially excluded communities living in Bangladesh. Even though the 2011 census provided an precedent opportunity to capture national data categories related to work, surprisingly, descent and caste were not included. The lack of concrete data contributes to the invisibility, marginalization, and disempowerment of these communities, and prevents not only capture of national disaggregated data, but also Dalit and excluded communities claim for special measures, representation or participation in policy making, development, employment, and equality of access to basic service. Here in Bangladesh, in 2002, one of organization, Bangladesh Dalit, BDH, or Bangladesh Dalit Human Rights organization, started the Dalit movements within 2 or 3 community. Then 2008, BDRM, Bangladesh Dalit and Exploited Rights Movement, all are made this organization. Here in Bangladesh, Dalit no more Dalit youth organization here, not active. Just some of Dalit youth organization in Bangladesh working. So here just Bangladesh Dalit and Exploited Rights Movement and PDHR, Dalit Women Forum, Dalit Women Federation, and some organization working in this movement. In the context Bangladesh, BDRM, I just share BDRM story. Bangladesh Dalit and Exploited Rights Movement BDRM is a national level platform for Dalits in Bangladesh. It has been working on the rights of Dalits through campaign, networking, and advocacy at the national, regional, and international level. Currently, 17 Dalit lead civil society organizations and approximately 2,000 individual members are involved in this platform in Bangladesh context. I share the lives of Dalit youth are particularly harassed due to the practice of caste discrimination. They are frequently discriminated in access to education, decent employment, as well as access to basic service and entitlement of the government. Dalit youth have title education. Dalit youth have little education opportunity due to their caste and parents' profession, and therefore have to engage in Dalit additional job. Moreover, educated Dalit also face discrimination in their workplace for their caste identity and cannot cope with the environment. Mainstream development paradigms have overlooked their existence as special communities with special needs. Indicators assessing development have rarely taken them into consideration. Dalit young people are socially excluded from the mainstream community and have little participation in the social, political, and economic activities. Different programs for youth by the government or non-government agencies purposely excluded these youth from participation. Even they are discouraged to participate in the cultural program or day observation at school as they belong to lower caste. Educated Dalits often considered for the sweeping and cleaning job, even they have the education and skill for the decent post. Seeing their family name employers find them eligible for the cleaning post. Discrimination is the workplace like lower wages, abuse work for their caste, not allowing touching common things like cups, glasses, etc. Also, impediment to their access to decent employment. Anti-Discrimination Act can be an important tool for Dalit young having discrimination-free access to rights in all spheres in life. However, a draft act, first draft in 2014 and second draft in 2019, is still waited for finalization with the concerned ministry. Dalit young girls in Bangladesh face discrimination, exclusion, and violence as a result of both their caste and gender. They face discrimination in every sphere of their life. High rates of illiteracy, child marriage, and early motherhood is very common with the Dalit
Tamanna
girls.
ji, sorry. I think what you're saying now will be covered in the next question for you. So if we can talk about Dalit women in Bangladesh, when I come back to you, then that will be good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tamanna, for highlighting the experiences of the youth, Dalit youth in Bangladesh, and also, as Basil had said, talking about how CSOs play such an important role in moving forward the rights of people from these communities. For the final, our final speaker for this question is Adhikanta. Adhikanta, if you can tell us about the Indian context for the same question. Thank you.
Thank you, Nayandara, for this opportunity and having me in this discussion today. Am I audible to you? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, hi everyone. Good afternoon, Jai Bhim. I feel really immense pleasure and honor to be part of this deliberation today. Let's jump into the core topic of this discussion now. Friends, as you know that there have been many struggles and movement that has been taking place in this country on different grave issues, and oftentimes it added to the largest context of the human rights perspective and larger movement. And it also changed the political scenario in the political landscape of this country. So the three area, challenge area under this entire movement is after having the movement, after having after raising the issues, the movement gets weaker and weaker, and it gets fragmented, and ended with the issue unresolved. This is the challenge area in this country. This movement, however, taking place because of many reasons. As you know, that there are a lot of, frequent atrocities and attack against the Dalit. Rape and murder is common for our Dalit and tribal communities, especially for the women and girls. And there have been number of house destruction and house burning and property looting. And there are instances of institutional murder, state-sponsored violence against our people, and institutional caste-based discrimination and harassment to the public servant, and so on. These are the grave issues that really creates for the spontaneous and immediate reaction of the communities. So let me give you some of the examples that have been taken place. The major movement that have been taking place in India is like the first historical and remarkable movement that has been initiated by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar in the, way back, during the pre-independent period. And as you know, that Dalit were not allowed to access the educational rights, and all the entitlements were not allowed. Dalits were not allowed. So because of Babasaheb Ambedkar, everything is possible today, and our people are educated, and our people are now part of the parliamentary discussion. They are also in the part of the government job, and so on. And everything is possible because of his huge contribution to the society. And he's our Messiah, and which we, all of us, know. And the second movement started in the way back of 1972, between 1972 77, that is called the Dalit Panther Youth Movement in Maharashtra, which is the home state of Babasaheb Ambedkar. And this movement started due to the spontaneous and aggressive reaction to the repeated series of atrocities against Dalit in Maharashtra, and which was the first major movement after the independence. But it got diluted and fragmented due to several reasons. For example, Mr. Ramdas Athawale, who is now the current Union Minister for Social Justice and Empowerment, he started a new movement, which was different from this Dalit Panther movement. And today, he's with the BJP party. BJP is the political party of the RSS, the hardcore Hindutva forces of this country, who are well known as the anti-Dalit. And finally, because of several reasons, this movement also got distracted and fragmented, and finally invisible. And many of our people are hardly aware of this movement. And second movement is Kansira Bhujan movement, which was started in 1971. And the Kansira was one of the, he was the government employee, and he resigned from the government job and started, along with his fellow colleagues, and started the Bamsep movement. The main objective of this movement was to address the challenges and discrimination and harassment that was happening towards the Dalit and tribal employees. So he took the support of all the communities like SC, ST, OBC, and minorities. So later it turned into the political movement. And he is the founder of BS, with the current, one of the regional party of UP. And Miss Mayawati was once upon a time the CM of the state, which is the big state. But the current challenge, the main challenge is that the mastermind of the party is the Brahmin. And this time, the sad part is that this party did not even get a single seat in the recent election. This is because of this, the Brahminical forces entering into the movement. The second movement was Dalit literature movement. The aim of this literature movement was to publish the Dalit magazines to depict the misery and plights of the Dalit through Dalit poetry, stories, literature, revolutionary songs, and so on. So the next movement was the Phule and Ambedkar movement. And this movement focuses exclusively on the education for the Dalits. And a recent movement was the Rohit Vemula movement. As you know that the Dalit scholar, Rohit Vemula was a Dalit scholar who was, continuing his PhD in Hyderabad University of Andhra Pradesh. He committed suicide on 16th January 2016. And he wrote a suicidal note, and that was circulated far and wide across the globe. And his death was because of his death, there were a lot of protests, agitation across, not only across the country, across the globe. Many Dalits, intellectuals, journalists, and writers, many Dalit activists joined in this protest. And the huge contribution to this movement was the student movement, which was really, historical in nature in this country. So in spite of that, the government, the movement got diluted because of some reasons, like the government said that Rohit Vemula was not a Dalit, even though government declared some of the compensation package, job for the his siblings and so on. But because of the dilution of the issues, the government promises were not met. These are the reality in this country. So which is a huge moment. And regarding the present movement, there are a lot of student movement going on across the country, like BAPSA, BASO. BAPSA means Birsa Ambedkar Student Association, BASO, Bhagwat Singh Ambedkar Organization, SFI, and so on. So, these organizations are affiliated to different political parties. And as you know that the political parties heads up the dominant caste people. And because of that, all these movements gets diluted, fragmented. And the key challenges of this movement is like, this movement could not sustain for longer period. Why? There are a lot of challenges, a lot of, reason for that. As you know that the four pillar of the democracy is controlled by the so-called dominant caste communities like judiciary, executive, legislative, and media. And all our activists are quoted as the anti-national, and many of our activists are booked under sedition law. And because of that, many of our people are harassed, tortured by the state. And that leads to keep away from this entire movement. But there are a lot of positive things in this movement also, which contribute a lot to the society as a whole and contribute to the human rights, human rights movement across the globe, across the country. And there are a lot of changes across, there are a lot of changes in the policy also. And there are also some darkest side, positive sides and darkest side as well. But finally, I would like to say that NCTUH has also been involved in several campaign and movement. Like we have the campaign on higher education for SC student. And we have also the campaign called "100 में 25 हक हमारा," the budgetary rights. 100 में 25 हक हमारा means 25% of the total budget of this country is our rights. So these are the campaign we have. We have also campaign on justice and justice for the women. So these are a small campaign or a small, or don't know how to articulate this. But some campaigns and movements are still going on across the country. And one of the major challenges for this movement, the Dalit movement, is the FCRA rule for the NGO. Earlier, our NGO and our civil society groups were involved in this protest and movement to bring the transformation, to establish the transformation in the country. But this is because of this FCA rule. I mean, now it is really a challenge for the civil society to come forward and openly assert for the rights and entitlements of the communities. So with this, I would like to stop my discussion here.
Thank you so much, Adhikanta. You've highlighted sort of the history, giving everyone a brief look at the organized history of the Dalit movement, Dalit youth movements in India, and also highlighting the issues that these movements face in terms of, as you said, dilution of the messaging and of the force of the movement. And like both Tamanna and Basil had said, you've also highlighted the importance of CSOs and how they've played such a role in progressing the rights and advocating for these communities. I would like to request, after both our speakers are done, after the session, if anyone in the participants who's from Nepal could probably give us some context on the Nepal situation as well, because that would be also beneficial for all of us to understand and hear from. We'll move back to Basil now with a specific question on what is the impact of COVID on the Dalit and DWD youth with respect to freedom of expression. How are they adapting their movements forward while playing a significant role in building back better from the pandemic and contributing to the overall human rights to build a network of solidarity?
Thank you, Netra, once again. So as I mentioned in my earlier discussion, there is no Pakistan-wide organized movement of youth from Dalit backgrounds in Pakistan, but we can still make sense of how the pandemic has impacted all the communities here and there. So firstly is how the virus itself impacted the community. So a number of people throughout Pakistan fell prey to this disease and lost their lives. The infection rate within communities, CDWD communities, was also high, but even though the infection rate was high, still the loss of lives was not as it was in many other communities. So everyone eventually came through. But then the lockdowns and the pandemic also had a very significant impact on everyone. In terms of freedom of speech, I think that the pandemic in some ways improved the freedom of speech in Pakistan, because as the physical in-person spaces shrinked due to the lockdowns, most people moved to online spaces, and so online spaces have become vibrant and are now being frequented by people regularly. So just to give an example, we are having this discussion over Zoom, and before the pandemic, this would not have been the norm. We would all have preferred a physical in-person conference, and online conferences were not really in trend. But now that we have these online spaces, and all of us can communicate through these online spaces, freedom of expression has in certain ways increased. But then there was also some restrictions on freedom of expression recently in Pakistan, in India, and probably in many places around the world, and all of this could be traced back to the rise of authoritarian regimes, both in India and Pakistan, and in many countries around the world. but now the space, at least in Pakistan, the space for authoritarian regimes is rapidly shrinking. So in that sense, there was this positive impact, and then apart from that, the, the the virus also created a sense of solidarity within the community. So I remember seeing how when the pandemic struck and most people, many people lost their jobs actually, how people from within my community, the Christian community, from within the Hindu community, and also many non-profits came together and started organizing relief efforts to help those who had no means to sustain themselves. So that was something that was not really you know seen before, but this pandemic actually brought people together and allowed them to operate in a more closed manner. But then there was also a lot of negative impact on education, which has been the case throughout the world, on how when students have not been going to school regularly, and how they've been skipping classes. Many have taken breaks from their education, 1 year, 2 year breaks, and are hoping to resume once the pandemic completely ends. Many have started to resume, but then this break in education, this slump in the educational activities has had its impact, specifically in the quality of education as far as the quality of education is concerned. But apart from that, the impact on Dalit and caste and communities which are discriminated based on work and descent, they have had sort of similar experiences as like the communities otherwise, although they might have experienced a harder impact of the lockdowns, because they tend to be in jobs that are considered menial and that are considered that are very precarious in nature. So you these people involve daily wagers, people who go to homes and work on daily basis. So they have high exposure to diseases, that they have a higher exposure to the coronavirus pandemic, especially so large percentage of women from the Christian community, especially in Lahore, are involved in domestic work, where they go into people's homes and work there. And recently, they have been impacted more. So they got sick more often, and generally the burden on them was higher. But so far, everyone has come through. We've recently been trying to uh, gather some statistics as to what those numbers were exactly, to put that impact in some sort of numbers. But as of now, we don't really have any clear numbers about how the communities that are discriminated based on caste and descent are being were impacted by the pandemic specifically. But this is the impact on the community overall. As far as youth movements are concerned, there are organized youth movements, maybe church groups within the worship places in Pakistan for the Christian community and for the Hindu community. Maybe some very local groups at mandir level or at neighborhood level, but nothing organized on a mass scale. And those groups have been impacted a little bit, but not much, since all of these communities tend to be very closely knitted, and they tend to stay in touch despite all the restrictions that were put in place.
Thank you, Basil. Yeah, it's interesting how you mentioned about how online spaces have really become more vibrant in this. And I think it's been a good place for people to not only ask for help, but also receive the solidarity that they may need, or reach out to people if they need any help during this time. Thank you. The next question is for Adhikanta, and the question is, what has been the impact of COVID on Dalit and DWD youth regarding economic rights? How are they adapting and taking their movements forward while playing a significant role in building back better from the pandemic and contributing to overall human rights and to build a network of solidarity?
Thank you, Nayantara. In response to this second question, let me start with the impact on Dalit and tribal youth, especially due to this COVID-19. Recently, I mean, last year we had a study on higher education, accessing higher education. We covered almost 10,000 samples from 6 states. And the study findings reveals that the staggering percentage of students had not received the post-matric scholarship. The post-matric to support to other, I mean, people from other country. Let me also tell a little bit on the post-matric scholarship. What exactly the post-matric scholarship is? The main objective of this post-matric scholarship is to provide financial support to the student belonging to the Dalit and tribal community to pursue their higher education. So this is one of the largest and oldest scheme for the Dalit and tribal student, especially those who are studying the higher education. And it was the dream project of the dream scheme of the Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And very recently, it got a lot of challenges. So the present government was about to scrap this the scheme, about to stop the scheme. And because of our series of, kind of campaign, social media campaign, and press conference, and so on, the government has to restore the scheme. And finally, they somehow declared that they will allocate some 35,000 crores as the central share for this student. But during this COVID pandemic, almost, staggering percentage of SC students could not receive their due scholarship timely. And many of the students could not even continue their study because of the low level of income in the family, and the one way, and the other ways they could not even access the post-matric scholarship and other higher educational schemes. And second thing is, many youth, those who are finished their study, could not even lost their jobs, could not get their livelihood. So many were also part of the distress migration. And many students also, those who were in the working in the hotel, some companies also lost their job because of this entire world, standstill of the entire world in pandemic, because of pandemic. And there was a huge dropout among the Dalit and tribal students. And especially the parents whose incomes were very low and kind of things. So they actually could not continue their job, and they had to drop out from the education. Many of our children had to work in the unskilled labor. For example, one of our PhD students went for the many unskilled job. There is a scheme called Manrega, National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, that is exclusively for the unskilled labor. So the PhD student had to, go for the employment opportunity under this scheme. She had to cover almost 30 to 40 kilometers on tractors, and after finishing the job, she had to again coming back to the house and to maintain the livelihood of the family. So these are the plight of our communities, right? So regarding the allocation and utilization of fund, last year, 2 years ago, the total allocation under post-matric scholarship was 3,000 crores. But until February, the fund utilization was only 40%, not even 40%, 39 point something. And only one more month was left, like March was the only month, where the 60% fund had to spend for the Dalit and tribal scholarship. This is the reality. And this regarding Dalit and tribal budget, we found that almost 60% fund was unspent in the month of February. Why we know that February, keep on saying on February. February is our budget presentation in the parliament. And that month is important for us to see the entire budget minutely. So that actually gives us a lot of inputs and a lot of, we found a lot of challenges also. So that really helped us to go into the deeper side of the budget. So, and many of our children also went to different states like Kerala, Bangalore, to in search of alternative livelihood option to maintain their families and to pay their educational fees. And many of the, there are some backward districts like Gajapati and Kandhamal, where there will be the student can hardly access the electricity and internet access. And because of the poor also, they don't have their, Androids to access the online courses also. And I know I am from the most backward district of the Odisha, that's called Kandhamal district. Almost 2 years our children were nowhere. They were roaming here and there. So I was there for some time where my phone was completely dead. And I did not access even a simple phone call, right? So this is the reality in the ground level, in the rural area. So, and there is also no proper grievance mechanism to fix these challenges to access higher education. This is the real challenge for our youths in this country. We know that, as you know, that our people constitute 25% of the total population of this country. This is not a small number, it's a huge number. And the government is not taking seriously to the issues of Dalit and tribe. And there is no proper accountability mechanism. There is no transparency in the entire system of the entire framework of the Dalit and tribal budget. Where does actually this budget go? How many beneficiaries have been benefited? And so on and so. These are the real challenges in the entire framework of the Dalit and tribal budget. So how they can come out of this challenges and how they can contribute to the larger movement. This is my point could be, as far as I understand, we should bolster their agencies, Dalit youths movement, the agency of the Dalit movement. And we should sensitize. We have been sensitizing the Dalit and tribal youth on budget. And we aspire to see them as the trainer and the source of inspiration for the rest of the communities so that they can take this issue forward. And we should also build the student-led approach, student-led movement across the country so that they will feel the sense of ownership, sense of responsibility for the communities. Because Dalit youths are the real vehicle for the development of the communities. Once they are capacitated, once they are given huge amount of inputs and trainings on the rights and entitlements, I'm sure they will, definitely come out. They will come forward to take this issue forward, and they will definitely contribute to the society, and especially for the real development of the communities. So, yeah, and we should also spread and propagate the Dalit literature and their plights and their stories, so that people can also understand what kinds of situation is going across the countries through leaflet, pamphlet, and there are a lot of sources. There are, I mean, these days social media is so active, and our children, some of the children are active in the social media also. We should select some of the student leaders and I mean, push them to take this movement forward. So this is my, suggestion to as it is way forward to take this issue forward. That's all. Thank you so much. And,
Thank you so much, Adikanta, and thank you for highlighting how even if there are provisions made by the state for these communities, there are constant barriers that they are facing, and there seems to be no motivation on the part of the state to really get the money that is allocated to these communities, to the Dalit communities, to the people who need it the most. And that's also impacting how their quality of life and how they can continue to move forward during this pandemic. Tamanna, we will have the final question with her. And as I had said, this is on gender equality. So what has been the impact of COVID-19 on the Dalit and DWD youth regarding gender equality in Bangladesh? How are they adapting and taking the movements forward while making significant while playing a significant role in building back better from the pandemic and contributing to overall human rights to build a network of solidarity?
Thank you, Noentraji. Actually, in Bangladesh, COVID-19 period, the first confirmed case of COVID-19 was identified in Bangladesh on 8 March 2020. Despite more than 2 months of shutting down and general holidays declared by the government, starting from 25th March 2020. It proves to be challenging to reduce the number of infections, instead increasing day by day after relaxing the shutdown and reopening the activity. The DWD community in Bangladesh mainly belongs to the lower income group. A significant part of the DWD community works as a labor. Apart from cleaners, jobs under the municipalities and city corporation. Most urban DWD work as cobblers, cleaners, and different private hospitals, offices, and informal sectors on a daily wages basis. After the spread of coronavirus across the country, many from the Dalit community have lost their jobs. Due to 2 months of shutdown, as declared by the government, as a result, they have been suffering for want to food. Even though some community members have received food support from government and non-government institutions, that was not enough to meet the needs of this period. Many from the DWD communities suffering from the other disease didn't get treatment in the hospitals as suspected of COVID-19 infection. The DWD communities who reside in rented houses in urban areas are not able to pay the house rent. The school remained closed for a long time. So it severely hampers the education of their children as they are unable to give tuition to them at home. Actually, Dalit community are lower income group. Most of the children are drop out in the COVID-19 period, during the COVID-19 period. And Dalit youth are also dropped from this school or and colleges in this time. And I also add, actually, in Dalit community family, they don't have access to mobile internet. That's why they cannot get chance to online classes. In this time, Dalit young girl in Bangladesh face discrimination, exclusion, and violence as a result of both their caste and gender. They face discrimination in every sphere of their life. High rates of illiteracy, child marriage, and early method is very common with Dalit girls. Historically, Dalit communities are partial, and women and girls live the age of society. During the Corona period, Dalit girl uh, getting early marriage, and they are facing challenges, and they are also victims, and they have no access to go to school, and they are drop out. According to Dalit, male girl children should be put under strict control to keep the purity and honor of the community. Male children frequently go out of the colony and live in relatively bordered realm, while girls live within the colony, being largely ignorant of the world out. This obstacle is imposed by the male in the name of protecting the girl's dignity. Actually, Dalits are actual discrimination all over the country, and Dalit girls are uh, more discriminated by Dalit community, from Dalit community and others community, and they are now victims in this Corona time, and they are facing challenges from her educational level, and like they are survived now and struggling in this time. Here in Bangladesh, Bangladesh government provided Dalit quota in 2012 in 19 public university. But badly, actually, Dalit family are lower income group. They cannot get to chance to enter the enter the university and taking and they don't take quota. Some students are past some students go to university and past after completed education they cannot access to job because here have no specific quota for jobs in Bangladesh, and there in here Dalit youth movement is not active because Dalit youth youth are just uh, they are just thinking they can do father's job, cleaning or sweeping. That's why they are academically they are sometimes drop out, and they are thinking we are Dalit and we are working cleaning and sweeping job. They had thinking all time. They are thinking mind. So in this time, our some recommendation here in Bangladesh. Dalit Youth National and National Youth Policy 2017. National Youth Policy 2017 does not address the issue of Dalit youth by any means. The policy defines 16 categories of youth, but did not mention about Dalit and socially excluded community. In the upcoming national census, government should recognize Dalit as a special community, produce dedicated data on Dalit people, including young people, providing funds for Dalit youth and girls during Corona time. Ministry of Law, Justice and Parliament Affairs should take steps to enact the Draft Anti-Discrimination Act as soon as possible to address discriminatory customs against Dalit population. Ministry of Education should adopt guidelines to prevent discrimination against Dalit students, all educational institutions. Ministry of Education should initiate quota for Dalit students at secondary and higher secondary level as per the directive of the Prime Minister. Ministry of Culture Affairs, Social and Cultural Organizations should patronize Dalit youth to come out with their culture and those protect and promote the culture and heritage of Dalit community. Political parties, mainstream youth organizations should create a space for Dalit representative. take initiative to keep Dalit children in education, especially for the children studying at primary level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tamanna, for highlighting the situation of gender, Dalit women specifically, and in Bangladesh, and how the inequality is not only from being Dalit, but also from the fact that they are women as well. Before I continue, I thought maybe because Adhikanta and Tamanna have given recommendations, if Basil, you would like to give some recommendations that you think would be vital at this point.
Yeah, so as far as Pakistan is concerned, again, in my view, the most urgent issue is lack of investment in the education, health, and all other critical things that are necessary for well-being and welfare of the communities. So government has been implementing some programs for marginalized groups, but no program has specifically been implemented for non-Muslim marginalized groups, specifically Christians and non-Muslim Hindus. So large-scale welfare programs, large-scale educational programs, large-scale health programs, and large-scale infrastructural development programs. So in most of the neighborhoods that in which Christian community lives are really backward, torn down, unpaved streets, worn out streets, and there has not been any substantial investment in the infrastructure of these communities. So these communities require a lot of investment in a number of areas, and that investment has to be brought in from somewhere, somewhere. The government of Pakistan here always has an acute shortages in its budgets. There are always budget deficits because the allocation of finances is not the most optimal one, and most of the financial resources are spent at places where they shouldn't be. Rather, those funds should be spent on these communities where there is an urgent need for it. Again, on the second point, recently we filed a petition in the Supreme Court of Pakistan asking the Supreme Court to ban all the government advertisements from asking that only non-Muslims and Christians and scheduled caste Hindus apply for sanitation related jobs. So Muslims and people from non-Dalit backgrounds are not even allowed to apply for those kind of jobs. So these policies are ancient and they need to be dropped, and we are in progress, and hopefully we'll hear back soon from the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And these are the major issues. I think first and foremost is a huge investment in education, infrastructure development, and social development of these communities, and everything else I think comes next once these prerequisites are met.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for highlighting those points. I think I would like to ask the participants if they would like to ask any questions to our panelists. While you're thinking of your questions, I thought maybe I can highlight some of the points that came up in this session, because even though all three countries that we spoke of today, that is Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, are very different in many ways. There are a few common threads when you talk about communities discriminated on work and descent. All our speakers today highlighted the lack of access to education, particularly in remote and rural areas where many of these communities are situated. There's also an issue of early marriages for the women of these communities due to the pandemic, and in general even due to lack of access to education as well. All our speakers have also highlighted that there have been cases of violence and situations of job insecurity due to the nature of the work that they do, which is all mainly in the informal sector, and the fact that the way the pandemic panned out, these were the jobs that were impacted the most by the pandemic and by the lockdowns that happened in all the countries. And finally, I wanted to highlight that all our speakers spoke of how there have been either some government efforts or no government efforts at all to uplift these communities. And all of you have highlighted how there definitely needs to be an allocation of finances and budgetary allocation to these communities, and that money needs to be seen by these communities and by the individuals most impacted at the moment. Are there any questions that any of our participants would like to ask the speakers?
Yes, Nandar, I would like to ask a question. It's general to all the panelists over here. Welcome to all of you. As we say, Dalits and DWD communities are one of the communities which are left behind, especially when we talk about building forward from the pandemic. So most of the recommendations which we have heard over here are mostly directed to the state. My question is about what roles, specific roles or contributions could CSOs and the local NGOs could make to reach out to these communities, which would eventually help in advancing the sustainable development goals processes. Any of you can answer this.
Maybe I can go ahead. So, as we've talked about throughout this discussion, CSOs have been playing a very positive role and a very effective role within all the resources that are available with them. But we need to realign CSOs' priorities. So in my opinion, CSOs generally operate without a very rigorous research. So in my view, all the policy changes, all the initiatives that are taken by CSOs, all of them should be supported by some kind of research or policy evidence. But we really see the case here. Normally, whenever a CSO is deciding to take an initiative, they'll usually do anything that comes first in their minds. Rather, all of them should adopt some systematic ways. So, speaking about Pakistan, civil society organizations have been focused on a number of things which are related to legal reforms, law-related reforms, reforms as far as recruitment of in government jobs is concerned. All of that is really important, but then none of the CSOs have actually been focusing on the education of DWD communities in Pakistan, on their investment in their infrastructure or health or pushing government to invest in that specific area. And if their initiative taking and their strategy making is supported by some kind of research, thorough evidence collecting, and prioritizing what is more important and what is not more important at this point, I think we can have better results.
Thank you so much, Basil. Aditya, would you want to add upon to this?
Yeah. The role of civil society is really vital to address these issues and to bring this community to the mainstream, to uplift the communities. So during the, as far as the SDGs is concerned, they have a great role to play in terms of addressing the SDG 1, SDG 2, and the SDG 10, the inequalities, and we have also safe drinking water and quality education and gender issues. There are a lot of things which they can contribute in a massive way, right? So those who are focusing on the poverty alleviation programs, so the livelihood, option, livelihood programs, they can support to the community to access the government entitlements. And as far as the Dalit in India is concerned, there are a lot of provisions, a lot of policies that have been, run by, implemented by the government. The utilization and the implementation of the policy is not proper. There is a lot of challenges. There seems to be a lot of challenges in implementing all these policies. And the civil society has a greater role to revisit the policies meant for the Dalit and tribal community, especially to in order to address all these SDGs goals and targets. So they want to, they should linkage with the SDGs and the entitlements and the Dalit and tribal budget, and they should also help them to access all this, so that the human development indicators will be, there will be improvement in this human development index, and through this they can contribute a lot and to achieve the target of the SDGs. And by 2030, I am not sure, but I can say that there will be little bit of improvement in the lives of Dalit and tribal community. As far as the Dalit budget and tribal budget is concerned, Dalit and tribal budget, so there are a lot of schemes, positive, good schemes, and effective schemes through which the livelihood condition of the Dalit and tribal community can be improved. So that the challenge is the utilization of the scheme. And the civil society has a greater role to play to sensitize the communities, to bring this Dalit youth to the mainstream movement. They should, push this student to take this issue forward. So there are a lot of scope for the civil society to address this issue in the days to come and the upcoming days. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Atikanta. If we don't, sorry.
If Tamanna could add.
Tamanna, do you want to add anything?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, from our side in Bangladesh, civil society group active, they are active, but from Dalit organizations, they have lackings in here, lack of academic knowledges and lack of the no many organization here, Dalit organization. It's low, very low organization, and we cannot push the civil society because of our academic lack in Bangladesh context. So we need lots of organization, Dalit organization, and we need academic leadership. Then we can do active role with advocacy, with CPD platform or other civil society platform. We can join and working and push how actually our voice we can raise, like within the with jointly civil society group front of government. Yes, this is our lackings in Bangladesh, and some complicated movement here. No more organization. Leadership is very complicated here. And our challenges here, because here in Bangladesh, civil society are going like NGO type of work in Bangladesh, NGO movement. So this is the challenging in Bangladesh. So we are trying, we are working, we are pushing to grow the leadership, and we are we can also make some youth organization, but not active. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamanna. Yeah, for highlighting the need for leadership to move these, to advocate for the rights of the communities in Bangladesh. If you don't have any questions, we will close our session with a song by Dalit composer, music producer, and rapper based in New Delhi here in India. The song is Naveen Kumar is the artist. He's written many songs about the issues that are faced by people in India, and this particular song that we will be showing is about casteism in India and the issues faced by people, Dalit communities in India. Yeah, if the Panch, you can please play the song. Thank you.
Dalit was lynched, ironically, the Mahatma's homeland. 21-year-old scheduled caste man was.
I want you to stand up tall and proud. I want you to speak up clear and loud. Brown baby. अकड़ बकड़ बम्बे को 80-90 पूरे 100 70 बंदे ऊंचे बाकी जाति वाले मरने दो काटो उसको जो आए जज्बाती बातें करने को मसलो कुछ लो दम घुटो जो चल रहा है वो चलने दो ऑफिसों में ताने दो और घर मत आने दो रोको इनका कोटा और तुम पढ़ने भी ना जाने दो ऐसे हिंदुस्तान की रोजाना मिलती खबरें 200 साल पहले चटा करते अंग्रेजों के तलवे और अब कैसी ये आजादी जिसमें मंदिर जाने परी एक दलित को बाजार में ये नंगा मारा करते हैं तो शर्म आने लगी है ये कैसी संस्कृति यही है वो देश जिसकी बिकती है डाइवर्सिटी इंसानों के भीतर पलता एक ही सवाल अपनी जात बोलो पहले और फिर आदत डालो सहने की 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 कब तक सहेंगे जल्दी और धरती से उतारी ये तो हाल है बोले कि ये बस ऊंची जाति वालों का शमशान है क्या मौत मारेगी ऐसी छोटी सोच वालों को जो सांस लेते हैं बस बाकी भीतर से कंकाल है हिसाब रखा जाएगा तू बताएगा कि कौन निकला पैर से और कौन भजन गाएगा ये कौन लेके आया इतने अलग अलग राम एक केवट को बचाए दूजा शंभू को उड़ाएगा ये गाना नहीं आग है एक सैलाब है जो भीम लेके आया ये वो हक की किताब है और जान ले मैं अनुगामी उसी अम्बेडकर का तेरी छुआ छूट के जो काट गया हाथ है ये कल की आवाज है तेरे रिवाज है समाज का तेजाब है तू खुद ही चलेगा और जो रॉब से लिखाए गुमे गाड़ियों पे जात है जान लो सवेरा आया ढलने वाली रात है आदत डालो लड़ने की आदत डालो सहने की आदत डालो लड़ने की आदत डालो सहने की आदत डालो आदत डालो सहने की, आदत डालो लड़ने की, 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 आदत डालो सहने की.
If we walk long enough, must necessarily lead us to unity.
Thanks so much, Dipanshu. And with that, I think we will close today's session. A big thank you to all our speakers for bringing their experience and their knowledge on the issues of the DWD communities within their countries, and sharing with us about the situations there, as well as the situation with youth, DWD youth in their countries. And a big thank you to all the participants who were here during the session. And yeah, Dipanshu shared the social medias of Naveen Kumar, who is the song that was featured just now. So please go and follow him and support his work. Yeah, thank you so much.
Hi all, can we just switch on our videos for a while so that we can take a quick picture? Jai Bhim everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.